Let me get this thing stopped. All right, here we go. So I wanted to do this podcast, one-on-one, how to start monetize a podcast webinar, because a lot of people have been asking me to do one. And they said, Rob, how'd you start it? Why'd you start it? Where'd you start it? And I just thought it was something that I wanted to share anyways at some point, but I'm just going to kind of go off here. Hope everybody can hear me. So I'm going to assume you can. So this is my podcast story. I started the Sports Biz podcast, interview with influencers. And my story was because I used it for business development. I wanted to break through to deal makers and decision makers, and I needed a way to do that. Obviously, years ago, you could get through to the gatekeeper, and the gatekeeper was, an assistant or a mid-level executive to get to that decision maker. And there was always tricks and trades and relationships to get you there. Well, there's not a gatekeeper as much anymore, and people don't pick up their phones. So podcasting was a way for me that I discovered to get through to that gatekeeper. And I started, and the reason why I kind of started this was I found out about this deal that was out there, and I wanted to be a part of it. It was an RFP that was going out, and I knew the decision maker, and the decision maker wasn't returning any of my phone calls. So I called them up finally and left an email and sent an email that I wanted to have that person on my podcast. Well, the problem was I didn't have a podcast at the time, so I had to, and they agreed upon it. So I had to get a podcast together really quickly. And this was a picture of my first show. So I had to have a buddy of mine who was an athletic director at a Division I college do this podcast with me. That, basically interview with interviewers and interview with influencers was about and is about the stories of these sports executives. So that was my story, and I hope it's not too convoluted and am I explaining it, but that's why I started it. It gave me a little bit of a runway to get to that before that meeting, to get to know that person, to share some experiences with that person via email. And by the time we got on the show, we were able to talk a little bit about it. But leading up to that, I definitely had to find a platform, this is called Any Meeting, and how you like my lovely clouds in the background. And, that's actually my house office. And now I'm in a radio station studio, but that's how I started it. And that was back in 2014. And it really was it was a hack into meeting executives, and it worked, and I enjoyed it. And, there's so many different things that you could find out about it. And what I've discovered is that providing content that was relevant to the marketplace, or at least my audience, knowing who my audience was in the sports media industry. I got past the gatekeeper. I scaled an online community quickly. So people talk about SEO, and this is a great way to kind of create that SEO and that awareness. I didn't have to buy any ads. I didn't do any Facebook placement. It just scaled organically, and I provided value to my guests. So it was someone that it's people that I want to talk to, people that I'm interested in for the most part when I first started. And the first thing is, everybody loves to talk about themselves for the most part, especially this guy. And the guests wanted to talk about themselves too, but you provided them something of value. And it builds a relationship. So instead of back in the day, you might send a book or a thank you note, or, as a value for their time and for their interest. But now, not that you shouldn't do that anymore, but for me, this is what the podcast has done to help me scale it. And I eventually end up writing a book off of it as well. So just a couple things. So if you're thinking about starting a podcast, if you're thinking about creating a podcast for your business or for your personal brand, and I'm going to walk you through everything on my tips, the software that I use. I'm going to walk you through. I'm going to get rid of my little box here. The software that I use, and all the tips and tricks on simplifying a podcast, both on air and video. So it's not that difficult, but where you have to understand is where the market's going. and where the attention is and people's behavior, how they're consuming information, most of which you probably have an idea of, but maybe you haven't been afraid to start or don't know the proper tools to use. So hopefully this will give you a little bit more of that information. So I just want to talk a little bit about stats, and everybody loves a little bit of stats, but that's how many podcasters are out there right now. And you might think that's a lot, but not really with the amount of people that every human being on earth has an opportunity to podcast. And there's trillions on earth, and there's only 700,000 right now that we know of that are registered podcasters. This is how much money, this is the first time actually money that's spent in a digital space ever. I think 2018, more than TV is in a digital. So that's digital advertising, but it's also podcasts is included. It's $402 million was spent in advertising last year just on podcasting alone. So those are massive, massive numbers compared to where it used to be. So who are the listeners? Loyal, they're average 7 shows per week. And if you think about, if you do listen to podcasts, think about your own consumption and your own behaviors. It's an affluent listener with 75,000 and up of combined income. They're educated on 4-year degrees, 27% of them, and it's diverse. It's very multicultural. So these are the numbers that when you talk to advertisers, they want that. They want to see those numbers, and that's why the number is where it is on advertising dollars as well, because it's scalable. So here's 62 million have listened to podcast shows weekly, and there's many places that they listen as well. They listen at home. So Alexa and Amazon and Apple bring that to them as well on their computer. A lot of people obviously listen in their cars, which this is where I primarily listen to podcasts, is when I'm driving. And then the others is at the gym, running, exercising, on planes. But, home is a number that, kind of surprised me, to be honest, when I first looked at these stats. And then here's another number that's really critical, and how many of these folks that are listening, and on average about 20 minutes per podcast, it's 80% of them listen to it all the way through the show. So I don't even know if 80% of you are going to follow me through this this webinar, but here's a breakout. It's 56% men and 46% women. So it's pretty even. I mean, there's a show for everybody, really. And if you think about the consumption of just information and content, it's easy just to click and listen now on a computer or iTunes or Spotify. And they're listening about 6 hours per week. So those are big numbers as well. And you have a captured audience, on-demand listening, so that you have their you have their attention. If it's audio, you're zoned in on it. So it's a great place. It's a great place to be. So I don't think you and everybody on this webinar right now, obviously you're interested in it because it's a space you want to be in and you're really intrigued by it. So now how do you kind of set out and how do you take it to the next level that's made exactly for you and what you're comfortable with? So you got to look at what's your goals. Why do you want to start a podcast? Exactly why? Is it to build a personal brand? Is it draw attention to a product or service? Do you have a store? Are you an entrepreneur? Are you a solopreneur? What is it that you want to be able to get your information? Why do you want to get your information out there? Do you want to build an online community? Do you want to build a network of influencers and executives? So podcasting will do all of the above for you, but once you zone in on why you personally want to use it and what your audience is going to help you back into that development. These are the 3 rules that I look at. You have to pick a theme that you are passionate about. So if I pick three themes for me, is love the Walt Disney Company, Walt Disney World. So that would be a theme that if I ever did another podcast, obviously I love the sports industry. I spent majority of my career there. And I love to travel. So if it's cooking, if it's cats, if it's whatever you are passionate about, sports biz podcast for me, I was passionate about the sports industry. So that was one of my 3. If I get into any other ones, it's probably going to be the other 2 that are there. Maybe I blend the 2 together, Disney and traveling to Disney. So these are things that I'm passionate about. So it doesn't feel like it's work to me. And it's something that I'm very intrigued by and I can easily pump out content. So let's talk about getting started. And this is the thing that most people, I would say 80% of you right now listening, is how do I get started? How much time is it going to take? It seems a little bit overwhelming. What's the software that I'm using and the equipment that I use? Well, I'm going to walk you through it. So, like I said, let's start with step one. The first thing you need to do is select a theme and a title. You need to invite on a friend as a guest on your first show, because I think you want to at least interview somebody instead of just being the talking head, at least on the first show. You need to have part of your show on why you started that podcast and your goals for the show. So for me, it was Rob Thompson's Sports Biz podcast. It's interview with influencers. And I started the show because I want to share people's stories that naturally intrigued me. And I want to do this at least once a week. And my goal is to give you, the listener, as much content and information that maybe inspires you or triggers something in your mind to help you with your career or business. That would be the opening for Sports Biz Podcast if I had to do it. You also should have 5 or 6 questions on the topics for your first guest, and if it's someone that like it was a friend of mine who is an athletic director, I talked to about his career. What are things that are different now than when he first started 20 something years ago? What advice would he give to himself 20 years prior? And what advice would he give to college students or college student athletes right now about to graduate? So those are like four or 5 questions that I had prepared that I wanted him and for him to talk about for about 20, 25 minutes. So that is the attention span of everybody. And that's why I got to hurry up with this podcast, because I'm at 11 minutes in. So I got to quicken this up. So step 2, graphics. You have to find some graphic platform that helps. I use Canva. For those of you who know me who are on here, you get a little chuckle because I'm passionate about it. It's free. It helps, and I just kind of put things together. But this is a graphic design that I used recently for Tracy DeVorge, who I interviewed. It's user friendly. It's, like I said, it's free. It's click and drag and pull, and once you get kind of used to it, you could you get a little bit more advanced. But it's very, very simple and easy. And did I mention it's free for first time? So it's called Canva, canva.com, and that's where I do all my graphics. And it also has templates for all your designs and sizes specific towards Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and headers for LinkedIn and all your social media platforms. So it's a tremendous platform. But you need graphic design if you're going to do a podcast as well. Some of the equipment that you can use, and some of it is like right now, I'm just talking off of the basic computer internal speaker. But I've seen these used before, and I've used them myself. So you could get any kind of plugins right into your computer with a microphone for $50 to $150. They're all on Amazon. You could plug into your cell phone. So if you're going to do a remote, if you're going to interview someone in their office, you can get them from $30 to $150 a piece, and they're really good. You get wind screens on them too, so you're not breaking the bank. And the good thing now is the software that is available and the equipment that is available is not going to break your bank, and it's very, very reasonable, more so than it was even 5 years ago, and it's probably can continue to evolve as well. Recording software. So most of the the key for recording a podcast, you just want to get the file, the MP3 and the MP4. The MP3 for your audio, which you could obviously get off of your phone, or you can use GarageBand, or I use Audacity. Again, Audacity, and these are so simple to use. It might look a little bit kind of like a recording studio, but it's really not once you understand. And you could do a YouTube video that could show you how to use these in literally 10 minutes. Again, I discovered these all on my own as well. So once you're able to use this software to take your MP3 and upload it into it, or record right on your right on this software right here. So you're not uploading, you're just plugging into your computer with your microphone, and you're recording directly to Audacity. Again, it may sound complicated if you've never done it before, but believe me, it is not. You don't need an engineering degree. You don't need to be a motorhead or an engineer or an audio engineer. It's very, very simple, and it's free. So Audacity is really, I would recommend that highly. So once you get that audio, and once you could do it a couple ways. once you edit it down on Audacity and you have that MP3 file, it's just like any other file. It's like a PDF file or any other document file. It's an MP3 file that you could upload and it can be on your iTunes. I use a publisher that allows me to edit it up a little bit more if I want to. I could use it for the transitional music, the bumpers, which are kind of leading into it, leading into my show. Then once I publish this, so I use Anchor, by the way, I'm sorry, I use Anchor.fm, which is owned by Spotify. So Anchor is your publisher. So once I publish it on Anchor, then it goes out to the world. So it's kind of like publishing it on, say, Facebook. And then you could tag it into your other social media platforms. This is the same thing. So Anchor will then automatically, once you publish it, and once you have it edited up, you could drop in ads, you could drop in a bunch of things into it that add value and actually that plus it up a little bit. Then it automatically publishes to 12 different podcast platforms, including iTunes, Spotify, Outcast, and a bunch of other ones. Automatically does it. You don't have to do it, and it's automatic after that. It's kind of like when you place a video in iTunes. I'm sorry, in YouTube. It's just automatic. So once you create your episode and once you create your season, then you just roll with it. And I know I'm kind of speeding through this, but I don't want to take up too much of your time because Monday Night Football's on. So go to check out Anchor.fm. Sorry about that. So now once you have it produced, you have it distributed, you have the links to it, and now you have to distribute it across all your social media platforms, not just once, but probably multiple times. I use CoSchedule, and CoSchedule saves me hours. And the one thing everybody says about doing a podcast or creating content is, I don't have the time. Of course you do. You have the time. You just don't know the tools and the tricks and the hacks to get your time back. So with the tools and the software that I gave you, you also have this distribution, and this is the ultimate hack. So on Sunday evenings, after I did a couple podcasts during a week, I will take that file, which is just a link off of, say, YouTube, because I'll upload the video and I'll upload Anchor. So I have the links to Anchor and I have the links to YouTube, and then I publish them here on CoSchedule, which allows me to publish across Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn. And it also gives me the analytics so I can kind of see what's working and what's not. CoSchedule is about $15 a month. This is a subscription-based but $15, the amount of time it gives me back every week when I'm not sitting there continually to post. This helps out a lot. So CoSchedule, you can use Hootsuite, some of the other scheduling Buffer. There's Agora Plus. There's a bunch of them. I like CoSchedule because it's very, very user friendly, and that's why I recommend it, because it's obviously user friendly for a reason for you. So this is this is where I am now. So I've always been into the video side of it. I just think it's compounding content, so the video and the audio. So what I love Zoom, like this platform right now, because it records at both MP4 and MP3 files. So I don't have to do a lot of fussing around. I'm able to then upload it to YouTube, my MP4 file, and my MP3 file into Anchor. It gives me, I'm able to live stream it if I want to, again, and videos are 65% more engaged than just a graphic post or an audio post. So your videos definitely will pick up more. And again, I'm able to take that audio file off of this Zoom call, just like today, and I'm able to drop it into Anchor.fm. So I apologize. So my mind is going a million places. So once I recorded it, I have another option of doing it live. And this is the step 8. So I'm able to create compounding content across multiple touch points with the same production, and then pull out of it the snack bites, which are just kind of edited down audio and video of things that we like to say, or I thought was pretty cool, or I had a guest come out with some type of really golden nuggets of information. I do go live on my Facebook and YouTube, and then I'm able to monetize it now after I built up my viewership with some sponsors. And we do a live show. We do a live show both in the studio and we do it at sports bars as well. That works for us. You could do it at bookstores. You could do it at fairs. You could do it in your, doesn't matter. You could do it in your room. You could do it in your office. So once you scale it and then you figure out who the audience is, this is kind of extreme only because I come from that advertisement world. So I'm able to kind of layer in some things there. And then when you monetize it, oops, sorry about that. So when you monetize it, you're able to monetize just off of Anchor, and you're able to pull off what your views are. And when you have sponsors and ads dropped in, then you're able to pull off just like Google Ads. So that's it. So I breezed through it really quickly. I didn't want to take anybody's time too much. I wanted to give you the real quick bullet points on this. This is how you get a hold of me if you have any questions. So I hope you all enjoyed it. I know it was kind of quick how I did this, but I just wanted to run through it really quick. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to email me, which I just shared with you before. Here it is again. If you didn't get my email address, rob@gameplanu.org, feel free to reach out and with any questions, but I hope it helped. I hope you got something out of it. If you have any questions, let me know. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm not selling you anything. It was just some tips on podcasting, and I really enjoy doing. I'm on Game Plan U is my handle on Instagram and Facebook. You can find me on there as well. So I hope you all have a good evening. I know Monday Night Football, I did it in 21 minutes, so I stayed to my word, and thanks for joining me. I certainly appreciate it. Have a good one.